second.
Lately, I've been thinking, oh, I should just go to the eye doctor and get some readers, but I hate the progressive readers.
Mine
And
are
that's
like baby progressives, and they did not take me long to get used to.
well, why I don't
There,
like them
now am I
is like I can use these to see my computer and read. Oh, they look cute. But when I read with the progressive ones, I feel like I'm doing I feel like I'm going like this to read, right? To look through the little
Oh,
hole at the bottom. Drives me crazy.
I don't know. I've noticed that, but I don't have full on progressives. They call them baby progressives. I don't know what that means, but
Mini
need-
progressives.
I need ones that don't glare when I'm on the computer.
Yeah.
That's what I need help with.
you mean that don't like give back glare?
Or like they don't show my computer screen.
So these
Oh, yeah.
peepers, do you see the computer screen?
No, what are those?
No,
What-
I usually see your ring light when you do that. Yeah.
Right. They're peepers. And I will tell you, Carrie, I bought the matted ones because the shiny ones show my ring lights,
oh, yeah.
show the computer screen. But I love these peepers. They're not blue light because the blue light shows the blue light back, you know?
Yeah.
Or that's been my experience, but I love them. And they're like 20 or 25 bucks. You can go on, plus they're Oprah's favorites, which is why I channel my inner Oprah when I'm wearing them.
these are peepers too.
Yeah, I love them.
Hmm. Perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Shopping tip for the day. Okay, I don't know. I haven't heard from Kathy. I don't know if she'll be joining us because I know her sister was having surgery, but I don't know what day. So she can listen to the recording. But here's what I'd like to do. You know how I like to start these out because physiologically it changes the neuroplasticity of our brain when we're in the gain. Wow, I just rhymed. I feel like I'm Eminem or something stupid. I've been like really geeking out lately. So if you would, I want to hear a win, and you can share one on Tuesday that Lachelle didn't hear, but I want another one, not just the one from Tuesday. So
I'll share.
okay.
We have had three we've had three presentations at real estate offices this week. I gave the presentation today, and I'm hilarious, by the way. Also, but we have just launched this business on February 11th, and we have given out 9 quotes so far. Well, just to have had that many consultations is a really big deal. And so just waiting to hear back on Larry with his $49,000 quote, or 37, depending on if he chooses to do the LVP or not, and get that one started. But we finished our first job this week. We've got our second one en route, and then another one. So that's
So
like
you're gonna blow your $150,000 March goal out of the water.
I hope so. Yeah. And in true Mark and Carrie fashion, we're going away for spring break, and then I'm going to Costa Rica, and then I have a conference in Dallas after that. So, and I'm still going to do all that. So, yeah, it's been a great week. 150, let's go. And Mark just had to leave. We were on a call with franchise partners, like prospective franchise partners. He had to leave in the middle of the call to go do a consultation. So we're going to have 10 quotes out in our first month so far. And we have 4 more days left. So
That's awesome. 4 more days
cool.
left. Oh, to have the time to bring it in.
for like, well, yeah, for the first 30 days of operation. So
I see. That's fantastic. Way to go.
So amazing.
Yeah.
all right. Lachelle, we've been waiting to hear from you.
Hi. So grateful that I pulled off another successful retreat. It's completely life-changing, amazing feedback. Yeah, this one has actually taken me a couple days to process. Like, interesting, like shedding of shit and vibrationally aligning with cool new things at the same time. And had a crucial conversation yesterday with someone that went well. Get to have a fun conversation with somebody later today that is going to help me expand my business. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm like really excited.
That's
See
so
things move. So
So,
yeah.
Lachelle, I have to tell you, I woke up this morning because I was trying to work on my schedule in May and I thought, oh, I can't take that weekend off because it's I can't go travel that weekend because that's the Lost in the 50s. And then I was thinking, oh my gosh. So Lachelle came to my retreat in May that I had, and she loves cars, right? And so it didn't work out this way on purpose, but she spent the night at my house and it was Lost in the 50s. So all these like really cool cars are like lined up because they all come from Canada. And so I was just thinking about like, not that you were in a not great place when you got there, so I don't mean it to sound that way when I say this, but more so like seeing the growth and the trajectory of, I mean, I look at all you've done. I don't know prior to that because I didn't know you, but like all that you have done and who you've been. So for me, there's this whole idea too of the doing is the human being, the being human is the how we do it. Like just watching that, like, yeah, it just gives me chills. It's so awesome to see. So I'm so happy for you, and not that it matters that I'm proud of you, but I'm super proud of you and you should be proud of yourself.
Thanks, girl. I am just really grateful to have you in my life. So
Back at you to all
for
of you.
being a catalyst for all of that. But yeah, it's fun. Like, all right, now what? Like, let's keep going.
Right? Exactly.
So yeah, thanks, Debbie. I appreciate that so much.
Mm.
And I'll just say that I'll just like give you guys background. So that was the first time I've ever called in sick in my entire life when I wasn't to go to that retreat. She invited me to it. I'm like, oh, that would be fun. Like, isn't that nice? I have no intention of actually going. And then she's like, no, you're coming. Like, imagine her saying that. And then she's like, no, for real though. Like you can stay at my house tonight, like the night. And I'm like, says Minnesota girl, like that felt like uber uncomfortable that I would like take her up on that, like skin crawling uncomfortable.
Mm.
And then I'm like, what the hell? Like I have an opportunity to spend extra time with this amazing woman. Why wouldn't I go? And so I called in sick and I got on a plane and I spent the night at Debbie's, and it was a huge like lesson in me of learning how to receive. Because this woman made me so uncomfortable. She gave up her bed for me. Like, here's Debbie, like in my mind, like, and then like she puts me up in her bed and she sleeps on the couch, like uncomfortable again.
Well, and it was so funny because when I had told Lachelle that, I had forgotten it was Lost in the 50s, and these guys have been coming down here for like 15 years. So when they tore up all the cabins, I had told them, absolutely, I'll always leave the downstairs available for you guys to use, right? So like my apartment that I typically have extra bedroom was being used. And so that's why then I didn't tell her that because I knew she'd freak out until we like got there. And I'm like, guess what? Sheets are clean. You're sleeping up in my bedroom.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. Like, of course, like we all learn things from Debbie, but it's in the being that you learn the craziest things. Like my retreat was great and I'll take credit for that. But one of the most transformational moments was when we got there the day before. We went ziplining and we had the opportunity to jump off a cliff. And one of my clients did it. And she's like, that one moment changed everything for me.
Mm.
And I just got to be there for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's cool when all of the things come together. So thank you for making that happen.
Mm.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more about it. Did you see a sloth? Because I've really been looking on where we could go to see a sloth, and it's a long way away.
So funny. So I did not, but what was hilarious is that one of the gals that was, at the retreat posted this picture of a sloth and tagged me in it. I don't know if anybody saw it.
Because that's why I'm like, did they see sloths?
I know. And I was like, Charisse, did you see a sloth? And she's like, well, I didn't say that I saw it.
Oh, that's
So I
funny.
go post it and doesn't say she saw it. My God. So then we were all joking. I'm like, yeah, I saw a sloth on my computer screen or on my phone while it goes.
That's funny. That's funny. Okay, Miss Pam.
But we did lots of monkeys and iguana.
Oh, cool. I'm hoping we see some monkeys, but I don't want any of those mean monkeys but see some monkeys.
No mean monkeys.
Yeah, but we'll be all staying in the same place, so we'll see monkeys. Sorry. I don't know what has been in my water lately. Like I've been drinking or something. I'm like,
I think Debbie just called us monkeys. I think is what just happened.
I call myself that too.
You can't say not my monkeys, not my circus, because we are all your monkeys. And it is your circus.
That is good. That is good. Okay,
Hmm.
Miss Pam, give us a win.
Well, I think we found the person we're going to hire.
Yay.
So
Good. So the interview
we're
went well.
running background checks and references and things like that. But Katrina, my senior person, is super excited about her, and we all really like her. She's former military and just has like this can-do attitude that is just amazing, and we're just really excited about her. So she's getting her bachelor's degree in the next like 2 months, and she'll have her master's degree by next year. But she's working. She's just finishing up a KPMG internship and has previous accounting experience. So yeah, we're really excited. So
Awesome.
and
Yeah.
so that in combination with all of these proposals that I've been sending out, just sent 2 today. I have 3 more that I need to write. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome. Way to go. Yeah, I'll tell you my win. It was pretty awesome. Through Gonzaga, I had volunteered if they had some stuff that they needed help with that I would help coach these 2 women. One was a supervisor and one was an employee. And I was a little nervous about it because it was not really about communication, but more so about the hurt that they had caused each other because of communication and because they each are filtering in a different way, right? So I just was really leaning in for me, God, right? Like I was just really leaning in, and it was really cool to get off the last call with them yesterday. And Carrie, I did the second half of the sculpture exercise
Mhm.
where we had talked through what the present situation was individually and then got together and kind of walked through that. I gave him a lot of tools, and then we went through this, like, where do we want it to be in the future? And like just seeing what had happened in that relationship and giving them tools so that once they get over the honeymoon period and they like butt heads again, like how they can work through it. And then one of them signed up for a clarity call today, and talking to her and kind of where she's going and the ahas that she had. Like I got off the phone and I was like, this is why I do what I do, right? Like, I mean, I have those moments frequently, but it's like, ones that just like sit in your belly that are just like, yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, okay. So thank you for listening to mine. So today, we're going to talk about a couple of different things. And Lachelle, I'll go back. If you don't have time to watch the call, just let me know. I'll shoot you the questions because I was going to send an email anyway to everyone with these in there. But there were some questions that I asked you all, and I don't have my book with me that I take notes on to have those 3 questions handy, but I'll shoot them out in preparation for April because we're going to do a lot of work around money and kind of that whole idea of receiving and what we feel about money, and we're going to work a lot on that. So today though, I want to talk about a couple of different things. And one of the beautiful things is well, I'm going to call it beautiful because I'm going to like not be humble here for a minute, but I continue to spend money in my own self-development, and then you all get the benefits of that too, right? So as I'm learning things, and so I'm kind of incorporating some things of my own and other people's, and I think I've talked about Peter Crone with you all before, and I'm in his mastermind. And so some things really clicked for me the other day that I want to talk about. And I want to set this up because then I want to really focus on the law of cause and effect and some of the goals and things that I want you to do in preparation for a month from now. A little over a month. Pam's like, don't freak me out. It's longer than a month.
I know. I was like, wait. Okay.
Okay, so I want to talk about, I've talked about brain science before, right? And this idea of the brain. And I have a new perspective. So I'm in the process of changing that worksheet that I want you all to really be aware of. And that is, if you think about the brain, oh, I don't know. Lachelle, were you going to present your vivid vision today? I didn't talk to you about it, but I don't think so. She was just coming off Costa Rica.
Yeah, so it's like it's good enough, but I would love to put some final touches on it.
Okay, so next week, you good with that?
Yep.
I'm going to be at a coffee house, so I'm going to put right here, Lachelle. Thank you for that reminder, Pam. I love that you helped me with that. Lachelle.
I didn't want all of her. I would have been so sad if I had done all that work and then I didn't get to present mine.
Yeah.
Then like I rushed for nothing.
Hey Pam, read your text. I just
Oh, did you text me? I don't even notice.
got off of a coaching call and I was telling her, I'm like, I have 30 minutes to finish this up. And so I just sent her a text. It says, I think she forgot.
It was too late. I already sent her a message. I'm like, hey.
I
I'm like,
I said,
I didn't want you to be like, I did all that work for nothing. I rushed and I got it done, and now nothing.
oh, I was like, good deal. I can remind her after.
That's awesome. Okay, so Lachelle, you're on next
Sorry.
week. Thank you for those reminders. Okay, so I want to go back to the brain here for a moment, right? And it's funny because actually the vivid vision is a perfect example of sometimes how our brain works. But if you think about, and we've talked about the circle, but I want you to think about the brain, and the brain is like the hardware. So if you think about the equipment, the brain is our physiological gray matter, right? Well, what happens when we die? Does the gray matter disappear? I mean, it eventually does, right? But like in that moment, the gray matter is still there. So there's the brain, which is the hardware, and then there's our mind, which is much more expansive than the brain, right? So it's the intellectual, like there's like multiple different intellectual pieces here. One is about the thinking and the thought processes. Some of it is around the heart, some of it is around kind of our knowing and what I would call foresight or our instincts and our intuition, and about our body. But our body's really kind of the container, right? And so if you think about the mind with imagination, with all of the things that we're able to do, it's much more expansive than our body even, which is this vibrational energy too. Do you get that? Does that make sense? So when we think about the essence of who we are, that's really our mind, right? It's our soul, it's our mind. Like the mind is connected to all those things. And so if you can think about, now I'm talking some Kathy's language, if you can think about that expansion, right? And when we talk about collective, hopefully all of you have had these experiences before where you think about a friend or something, and then like a few hours later or the next day, they text you or call you.
All the time.
Yeah. That's that. I mean, that's a very surface level. So if Kathy's listening to this, she might go, no, that's not it. But like very surface level, like collective energy, like we're all tapped in. And if you think about it, one of the things I was doing was actually working on the universal laws. And there's this universal law of divine oneness, right? Like we're all connected in like this web. Carrie, you probably remember this, but there was a book I read called The Web of Inclusion, right? That's like all these webs and how we're all included. And it's really about, if you think about your thoughts, your actions, your emotions, they ripple and influence other people. That's that law of vibration that we're talking about too, right? Are you following me? Because I'm dropping some stuff here. So if we think about how we can influence ourselves and influence others in the world around us, then each thought and action that we put into the world sets off a series of effects. And if you think about, like, all of us have had children, and how many of you have ever stepped on a Lego barefoot?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't care to ever do that again. It hurts worse than anything, right? I don't know why, but it hurts. And so if you think about, if you wanted to travel from your office or where you're at, Lachelle, in your living room to your bedroom, and there were toys all over the floor, how do you get from where you're at to your bedroom?
Hmm.
Oh, Pam, you're on mute.
You gotta clean up the toy.
Well, there is that. You do need to clean up.
That's how you get there.
Yep. And okay, so in that same essence, right? Like if you clean it up, it's space, right? There's space that's created. So if you think about like you're gonna go wherever there's space between the toys to get to where you're going. And you're right, you do need to clean it up, right? But like it's in that white space. And that's kind of that, like what's emerging for us. And we see that space. Like when I ski, I'm not gonna lie, every time you go down a mountain, how many of you have ever skied before? Okay, so whenever you go down a mountain, you can see the lines, right? Like the steeper lines, the ones that aren't quite as steep in the terrain. And so it's like, when I first started skiing, I always took the easiest route, right? But that's kind of what we're talking about when you see the toys. It's like you're picking the line that you're going to take. Rock climbers do the same thing, right? Like they see the line that they're going to take. And so if you think about your mind in the fact that the toys are the obstacles, right? And if we think about our mind as having space, and what creates the space, and I think I might have spoken to this a little bit either last week or Tuesday around, did I talk to this a little bit on Tuesday?
Very briefly.
Okay, thank you. And there's a really cool video, and I think I was mentioning this, where it talks about this whole idea that when you think about energy and this energy that we create in our thoughts and our feelings, that creates frequency, which is the law of vibration, which then creates form, which is the law of transmutational energy, right? Puts it into form. So if you have a form or you have something happening right now, it's based on basically the energy that you put to it in the past. So that's the law of cause and effect. Right? So anything that's happening today, and if the universe is always for you, even things that feel difficult or feel like the universe is against us, it's a matter of looking at, without judgment, what were some of the actions or what were some of the thoughts, the toys that I laid out to create the effect, because we're always in effect. Excuse me, we're always in cause. I always do that. We're always in cause. So whatever it's, the actions have a reaction, right? We all learned that in 6th grade science, maybe even before 6th grade. So if that's the case, then we're always in cause. It just depends on what effect we want. Now, sometimes we know the effect we want, but we still choose to do the other cause. And that's where those binds, right? Like that's where we have to go back and look at, like, particularly in a safety perspective, like what doesn't feel safe about this, and really unwind those things that we talk about. But I want us to understand this idea of the brain and the mind being expansive, because if you think about your mind as energy, you're limitless. And really the only limits or toys that we put out are the words that we use to fill the space. And so if we're the words that fill the space, and if you, okay, so I want to back up for a second. So if you think about frequency, right? And frequency is in sound, and sound are words, and we're filling our mind with words. If you think about a radio station, like all the radio stations are out there right now, right? We just have to tune into the frequency. So what's your favorite genre of music? Pam?
Grunge.
I kind of knew that.
I
Carrie,
like 90s grunge.
I like all the music.
if you had your choice to listen to pop, Lachelle. I'm sorry? Country. That's right. I didn't know that. So when you think about it, if Lachelle goes out and she tunes into a station that's hip hop, she knows she needs to change the frequency to get to country. Same thing with all of you, right? Like if you're listening to ballads, Pam, and you wanted to listen to grunge, you know you have to change the frequency. It doesn't mean that those stations aren't already there. We just have to shift the frequency. And I kind of stopped talking about this and I was like, why? I don't know. But if you think about the radio stations, you have a choice that you can either tune into K-Screw radio or K-Love radio. Right? In reference to the thoughts that you're putting in. And so when I say this, I want to break down the word responsible too, but you also then it leads to a level of responsibility. Now, responsibility can be tricky because sometimes that has a negative connotation and it feels like work, it feels like pressure. That's not what I'm talking about here. When you can empower yourself to be responsible for your own life, it is empowering. It's not like a drudgery kind of thing, right? Like, I don't know about you all, but being the oldest, it was always like, you're the responsible one. You're the, like it was always kind of those negative kind of filters at times. But be responsible for the frequency that you emit, which I think all of us on this call actually do that. And sometimes without even thinking about it, right? Now, sometimes we're mindful about it and sometimes we're not, but that's the whole idea of frequency. And so if we're experiencing an effect or a form that we don't necessarily want, then it's just about backing up and saying, okay, where do I shift the frequency? Where do I shift the energy? Right? I think I mentioned the other day that I was finding that coming out of kind of this dense, not bad, but dense time period of getting a lot of things in order to go after this exciting goal that I have, my energy was low. And so in order to get that energy back, I had to really tap into what creates a higher level of frequency for me. And that's that getting up in the morning and really learning, right? Like I've got notes upon notes of books lately that I've been like going through and things that I've been learning because that helps inspire me. So if you think about what kind of frequency am I emitting, and sometimes it's that we need to be calm in a situation. That's the frequency, right? So I don't know if that was my dinger or I've been getting dings lately, so I'm sorry if I can't figure out where it's coming from. But what happens though too is then we put words in, which are the toys that constrain us. And so I want you to think about too, like all of us had some goals around our physicality. And when you think about frequency and energy and you think about the mind being infinite and expanding outside of the body, and my mentor PC says the meat suit, which kind of just makes me laugh. But, like, I know, I'm like, seriously, that's such a dude thing to say. But when you think about stepping outside of that, the thought comes, how many times, now not looking at this again with judgment, but more so like stop collapsing ourselves with our physical form. Right? If we're tapped into this collective and the energy and this universal law of divine oneness, but we also have to have separateness, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. It's important for us to not get so tied into our physicality that we collapse ourselves, that we can only do this because we're this age, right? Like these are some examples. Or I can only do this because I'm not thin. Or I can only do that, although this is a true statement, I could only take 7 runs on Monday because my legs are tired because I'm out of shape, right? That's the law of cause and effect. But I was able to step out of that and I wasn't collapsing myself based on my physical form, but more so looking at, okay, the form is my legs are not as in shape, which then also creates a little bit of fear for me as I feel my legs not being as sturdy on top of the snow, right? And so then looking at it from a law of cause and effect, it's okay, how do I want this to show up differently? Well, I'm starting to work out, right? Like, so that changes that behavior. So it's not about our age, it's not about our weight, it's not about we're entering menopause or whatever, right? Like these are physicality things that do happen. But if we think about the energy, the frequency, and the form, because like Einstein even said, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, focus on energy, frequency, and form. Think about Elon Musk and coming out with an electric car, right? Like he was vibrating, had this like vibration of energy wanting to create something and had a frequency of wanting to do this. He didn't worry so much about how to get it done yet. Because then those things come to you. The key is not being the drowning man, pushing away the things that are coming because we just don't see them because we think it has to happen in this lane, right? Thoughts, comments, or questions before I go on? Because I know this is a lot of like, as Pam would say, woo.
Yeah, I'm embracing the woo. I'm just
I
throwing
know.
that out there.
I know.
Michelle threw some woo at me today. I did well.
I'm proud of you for that. Yeah.
So can I tell you a story?
Please.
So it's interesting because when I was in Costa Rica,
Mhm.
I can't remember who I've told this story to. So if I told it to Pam already, I apologize. We went to this zip lining place and we had the opportunity to swim and see these waterfalls. Well, they didn't tell us that you had to jump off of a cliff to get into the water, right? So I was like terrified, but I did it. I get down there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. The place to jump is right next to the waterfall. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to get videos of the girls like jumping off and getting this waterfall in the background. So I'm like, this isn't motivating me enough to do this again. I will jump again in order to get this video for other people. They told us before we got up to the cliff, they're like, take everything off, your watch, anything that is valuable to you, because if you lose it in this water, you will never get it back. Okay. Okay. Take my watch off, whatever else. I don't know what I was thinking, but I get up there. I said it softly on purpose. I get up there and I decide that I have my phone in a waterproof case. I don't know what I was thinking, that I was going to float. I don't know. I tossed my phone to the person that was already down there and bloop, went down. And the people that are working there, they're like, sorry. I was like, okay, all right. So I like teach this shit, right? Like high vibrations. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to freak out. Shit just works out for me.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, I have insurance. It's fine. I'll have somebody else take pictures. It's fine. And I completely stay calm, just trying to stay in this high vibration. And it was like, I was okay with it not ever coming back again. I let it go. And I was curious. So I'm like, I wonder if I can find it. So it motivated me enough to jump off the cliff again. And I'm like, all right, I'm down here. I'm just going to see if I could find it. No shit. In my waterproof case, it landed with this side up. So the glare of it was coming off of something and I could see it. And the water was like, the bottom of this cavern is like 20 feet deep, was black. And so even the water was clear, like you couldn't see anything. And I'm like, there's my phone. Like I see it. That's the size of a phone. This is where I dropped it. This is where it's at. And there were some other tourists there that were like, what are you looking at? I'm like, oh, I dropped my phone. Like, and the whole time I'm embarrassed. I'm like, like, how do you say stupid Americans in Spanish, you know? and so this guy's like, let me see if I could find it. It must have gotten exactly on a ledge that was only 10 feet deep. So he was able to dive down and grab it and bring it up again. And the people that work there are like, that's impossible. And I'm like, and then I told the ladies, I'm like, shit just works out for you. And you got to stay in high vibrations. And it was so funny because Jan is on the other end watching this. And she's like, I just kept thinking to myself, it's not lost. It's not lost. It's just funny because like, it was such a great, like physical demonstration, both of my idiot, like, what the heck was I thinking?
Okay.
But also just like, holy crap, like this, it was literally a miracle. Like that should not have been found. So anyway, I just thought I would share my woo story with you.
I
You
love
have, you have to put that in your next book.
I know, right? I know. I totally will have to put that in my next book. Yes. Thank you.
Now, I want to point out something really key here, that kind of two things, right? And ask me how I know this, control freak. It's not part of my identity. It's behavior that I have, but we're not in control of anything.
Right.
Right. And the beautiful thing that I heard in that story was your ability to surrender.
Yeah.
Right. You weren't tied to the outcome. You were just like, okay, well, that happened, and I'll take pictures with somebody else's phone. I'll like, we go into fix it mode right away, right in our brain, but like you went into this mode of, okay. And so many times, and I'm not going to lie to you, I have not read the entire Surrender Experiment. Like that's one where I read a little bit and then I'm like, I'm not ready for that, right? I'll read a little bit and I'm like, okay. And then I'll read a little bit. So I'm going to pick that one back up. It's going to go next to, it's going to go like 3 down in my stack. But this idea of you surrendering is part of what created the energy that allowed you to stay in the high frequency that then allowed you to see the phone.
Right. No, it totally. Exactly. Yes.
So awesome. Yeah. I love that story. Okay.
Yeah, I probably would have lost my marbles.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, great self-awareness on your part, because whew, I don't know, if I was in another country and lost my phone, that would be super stressful.
Which reminds me, I need to sign up for an international plan when I go to Costa Rica and the DR.
I've never, like, I have free service in Mexico and Canada, but I don't think that extends to Costa Rica.
If
I
you
think-
have AT&T will automatically for $10 a day, and it
If
won't
Verizon.
allow more than $100 within a billing cycle
Okay.
for it to do it. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. Sorry, Carrie, what were you saying?
Verizon's the same.
Okay.
Thank
I never get an international plan. I never get an international plan when I travel. I just deal with that.
So when you think about, like, we have 2 examples here. And so Carrie, how would you have reacted? Let's talk about that.
I mean, I'd like to say I would have been more like Lachelle, but also I feel like I wouldn't have thrown my phone.
Well, there's that.
Control here for a second, shall we? Like,
So let's imagine you did.
Okay. No, but I just feel like we were driving and parking at the grocery store today, and we're pulling in, and Mark goes, front row spot. Where's your front row spot? It always works out for you. You get the front row spot. So like there is something like when you said that happened, I was like, of course it did, because that's what happens when life just works out for you. So
Yeah, and here's the cool thing. Because Lachelle wasn't tied to the outcome, even if she wouldn't have found her phone, it would have been, okay, the universe is for me. There's a message here. There's something I'm supposed to learn from this, right? And so I love that example. And when we think about that vibration that you were coming at, Lachelle, like that's a beautiful example. It's just a beautiful example. And to me, it's a good example too, because if Jan, whoever Jan is, was standing over there going, you know, like, we're going to find it. We're going to find it. Like that's energy too, that's tapping into the collective. And so I'm going to move into some ideas about this idea of being part of a collective and individual as well. And this is where I talk about being conscious of who you're hanging around with, being conscious of who you talk to about business, right? And I see this in all 4 of you, but particularly the 3 of you on the phone right now, because you're on the phone or on Zoom, is that I think each of us has learned in a different way who we can kind of chat with about that, but we also become like the 5 people around us that we spend the most time with, right? So literally in my playbook that I have in this book here, I literally have like a section about relationships and list out, I don't know if you can see it there in kind of the red for my heart, like who the people are that I want to spend the most time with that month. Right. And I know that sounds kind of goofy, but for me, I can get spread so thin that it helps me, like, as I'm looking at prepping even to come in April, and from a channeling perspective, who do I want to hang out with? I want to hang out with people that are continuing to help me tap in and continuing to help me with my frequency. Right. If I'm needing to be a little bit more focused and have masculine energy, I want to hang out with some people that get shit done. Right. Like, and so it helps me kind of look at that. Now, I also, some people think this might be a benefit and some people may think it's not, but like, I don't have a spouse, right? That I'm also around, because there's that energy that we're in too. But then there's a book called Quantum Love that's really great that talks about quantum physics and that energy that's coming across. But I want to talk a little bit more about this collective. And one of the things that I love, absolutely love about all 4 of you is that I've seen energies come and go. I've seen energies rise and stay in the rising. And when you think about the oneness, we all have to be separate in order to be connected. And what I mean by that is this thing called field dependency. And I don't know if you've ever heard of or driven like in a whiteout. And it's very hard, isn't it, to like see the path. You can't differentiate anything. Right. So the same thing would hold true. And partially why, when I have people do a money exercise that we may do down in Costa Rica, I have them stare at a blank wall because there's no differentiation. So our brain is not like trying to make order of things because that's just the way it works. And so this field dependency, we can't see. We can't see. So it's like just this like invisible thing. So in order to be part of the one, we need to have some of this field, right? Like we need to be able to see some of the differences. Like each of us on this call has different eyes colors. We have different hair. We have different, like, so we see some of these differences. Where we get in trouble in the world is that people focus a lot on the differences instead of what connects us, right? But if we all looked the same, like I think about Star Wars or iRobot, right? Like the paratroopers, right? They all look the same. Well, then there's this, like they're all a part of a one, but we can't be part of the one unless there's some separateness. And it's in the separateness that really creates the growth. So when we think about the separateness, this is then where it comes into a little bit more about the law of cause and effect and creating motion to move forward. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and we're going to workshop a little bit and we'll come back and ask Carrie to do the same, is I want you right now, I want you to think about what is a goal in the business realm that you have. Well, Carrie's already got this one, that she wants to have 150,000 out of her new business, right? Like when you think about a goal for your business by the end of March, what is that goal? And write that down. And actually, you know what? I'm going to ask you to share it in the chat so that we can become oneness and like hold this for each other. So I'm going to do Carrie's really quick. So Pam, getting your new employee onboarded and working on new clients. How many new clients? Let's throw our, as my new friend Frank Swoboda on the podcast that dropped the other day says, and I like to say waiter, but we got to put our order out to the waiter or waitress, right? So how many new clients do you want to have?
Well,
Like,
we have 3 coming on for sure.
So are you saying you want to onboard those 3 new clients, or you
Yeah.
want to add more? Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So get the employee onboarded so that she can work on those new clients like from the start and be not so those new clients aren't affecting the capacity of the rest of the team.
Perfect. And then Carrie, I took the liberty of putting your goal by the end of the month because you had shared that with us. And then Lachelle, tell us a little bit about finalize your evergreen business structure. What does finalize mean to you?
So it's basically just getting all of the tasks that I'm working with somebody, and I have a lot of tasks that I have to complete. And so my goal is to get those done.
Okay.
I had to be realistic because I literally have like 6 days left of this month that I am working. So yeah.
And I think that's awesome. Like, it almost feels like there's a little judgment in there. That's perfect. That's why we own the business.
know. Yeah, no, I just had to be like, okay, well, what's realistic? Because I'm like, holy crap, it's already the middle of March. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's what we want to do between now and the end of March. Here's the question I would ask you, and I love this question, is what would it take to make that happen? And you guys are already working on some of this, so you don't have to necessarily type that into the chat, but ask yourself that question. And then what I want you to do is I want you to put a goal from now until when you leave to go to Costa Rica. What's a goal you have for your business? And type that. Go for it, Carrie. What?
What are they between now and Costa Rica, not this goal?
No, not this goal. So meaning that really by the end of March, so basically for April until you leave to go to Costa Rica, right? So it's really a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
What's a goal that you have between then, whenever you make the goal in March, to when you leave to go to Costa Rica? And it could be the end of April, but kind of thinking about leaving for Costa Rica. And then type it in the chat. So sign 5 new clients up for Spiral Up. Cool. And when you say sign up, Lachelle, do you mean like they've paid a deposit? They're like ready to go? Okay.
like contract signed. Yep.
Okay. And then Pam, when you say plan our annual company retreat, meaning like all the plans are finalized, it doesn't mean that like you've made calls to everybody, but you have the structure for what you're wanting to do, or describe that.
Yeah, not all the travel plans necessarily, but knowing where it's going to be and when, and yeah, having that stuff so Krista can start working on the travel plans.
Okay, cool. So now the question becomes, what would it take to hire a full-time project manager by the time you leave for Costa Rica? What would it take to have the plan set up for your annual company retreat before you leave for Costa Rica? What would it take to sign 5 new clients up for Spiral Up?
Well, I need a job description to visualize who I want to be on this role. So
Yeah, and I will tell you too, Carrie, the biggest thing that I find helpful, and you may have already thought of this, is that a lot of times I'll send clients, or if I'm doing it, I go out to Indeed.com and look up roles and see what other people have said, and then I pick and choose what I like out of it.
Yeah.
Or ask ChatGPT to write you a project manager job description and see what it comes up with to get you started.
Carrie, I'll send you, if you're interested, I can send you the link to our job posting. There's a specific format that I use based on something I learned in the Clockwork group. And it's amazing how when you put your own personality into it and you follow the kind of structure, the people who really resonate with what you're saying are the ones coming to you, right? They're the ones who make it through all the other like things that you put in their way to like let people self-select out. They're the ones who are like, oh my God, when I read this job description, this is me and I want to work here so bad. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
And make it fun. You know, like I have a client in Montana that runs a printing and packing and shipping company. And so we were doing that same thing and thinking about how to put your personality into it. And instead of just putting like a customer care representative or whatever, she called it a customer happiness advocate. And she got some of the most awesome responses. Because you're fun and your business is about fun. Mm-hmm.
Just have to make sure that the SEO works.
And so what would it take, Lachelle, to sign up 5 new clients?
I need to follow up with people I've spoken to. That's what I need to do.
Yeah. Cool. So part of why I do this is I wanted to give you some theory around the brain, and partially too, and about the mind, is that when we think about how we're limitless, because we're also all connected to each other and can frankly borrow some energy sometimes, borrow some belief from other people, then it's about getting really clear so that our brain and our mind don't go into kind of that fight, flight, or freeze modality, and get really clear on not the 800 things that we think we have to do between now and when we leave for Costa Rica, but what is the like big arching thing, and then ask the question, what would it take to get there? And that creates then this idea of, particularly that question, what would it take? What would it take to get there? Creates the cause, right? It allows us to do the actions and be in cause for the effect that we want. Does that make sense? Thoughts, questions, comments?
I just think the act of writing it down, the right act of saying it, like the world, your brain, the world tries to make it true. And so I've just been kind of preaching this in my own family with my son, with Mark. Like, if you want stuff to happen, write it down. Mark showed me today the coasters that we have in our living room. He brought it over to me. He said, you got me coasters of a Porsche. This was not the Porsche we had at the time, but this is the Porsche that we're finally picking up tomorrow. You know, like, so like, yeah, I'm all about it.
Absolutely. Hence why, and if you haven't taken a look at it in a while, hence why that document that we worked on in Costa Rica, that I know like a lot of you were kind of like deer in a headlight look with some of it, but about looking at all of those avenues or areas of your life, and why I had said, and I'm going to take a picture of our goals here so I can copy those. Why we started to work on that and why we only did 3 was to not overwhelm. Right. And so what I'd like for you guys to do, and I can resend out the PDF if you wanted, it's not branded or anything, but you would have the stuff of like, when you look at that wheel and you look at those things, like, what do you want relationships to look like? Because just the act of writing it down already, the Porsche story, already gets your mind into moving towards that. Like, you don't have to go back and read it every day, right? But it's already there. Now, the things you want to quantum leap, reading it every day for me is helpful, right? Because it keeps me in action and it keeps me centered into the tapping into the collective energy too, and connecting with that divine oneness, right?
Debbie, what's your favorite book for the universal laws?
It's a little dry, I'm going to be honest. But it's called Working with the Law. And I might have, did I give this to you guys when we were down in Mexico? I may not have. But it's 11 true principles for successful living. It doesn't necessarily have all of the ones, like it doesn't have the law of divine oneness, and it says them a little differently. Like the law of thinking is the law of transmutational energy, right? So like, but I like this one. It's written a long time ago. I don't know, Lachelle, if you have one that you use.
That I use primarily, but I was actually wondering the same thing. Like there's a really good one, Pam. It's called the Little Blue Book.
Mhm.
And it's not to be like insulting, but it literally looks like it's written for a fifth grader, which I love. And it's metaphysics made simple. And so it's a really great one to just start with some of these concepts, because that's what I've given some of my clients when they are new to this woo-woo stuff. But yeah, like I'm working with the law. Debbie, where did you learn all of the other laws that you talk about? Like, do you have resources for those?
You guys are gonna laugh, but I GTS it. I Google that shit. Right? Like I've actually gone out and I've been doing some research, and I've got my trusty notebook because I don't like to do things in electronic form. And I literally have been Googling, and it depends on where you're at. You know, like some have 7, some have 12, some have 11, some have 15. Some are like always there. Like the law of cause and effect is always there. The law of transmutational energy is always there. The law of attraction is always there. But and the ones I've presented to you all in the past, I got from my coach, and I'm in the process of putting them together for myself that include teaching points to help people understand them more and apply them more. And so literally I've just been Googling and looking at different things out there. You don't find a whole lot of scholarly articles about the universal laws, but I've been doing that, incorporating with, I think this is my like 4th version of this book that I've read and marked up. Not version, but literally like I have 4 of them that I have written a bunch of stuff in. And so taking all of the things that I've learned and putting them together now. So Googling this book, and you guys got this when we went to Mexico.
Mhm.
The front looks a little different because I was screwing around in Canva, and I need to not be in Canva because the whole idea of designing stuff, just like I'm like an hour and I'm like, I don't know where to move this thing, right? And so I have just been taking all of that. And then for me, what I'm looking at is, okay, if I'm reading this law of cause and effect, so the one that you guys got from me, that says nothing happens by chance. Everything you experience in the world is an effect of a cause set in motion. Effects become causes of new effects in a train of causation. And as first cause, everything you set in motion returns to you, the causal source as a result. So I think of like a boomerang, right? Like what we put out comes back. And so then literally I just take that and say, okay, nothing happens by chance. Where's evidence around that? And what are things? And that's just like the example of you dropping your phone, right? Like either way that would have turned out, because you surrendered it, would have been fine. Right? And nothing happens by chance. Like you threw it in there, and I think to myself, okay, the universe was working, because what a great way to prove a point to people around frequency, right? And when we look at everything as a miracle, then you realize nothing happens by chance, right? It's because certain actions were put into play that we're now getting reactions from. So honestly, I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what I got for you. I have not chat GPT'd it, but now that we've been talking, I'm going to go chat GPT it and see what it comes up with. Okay, my friends. Thank you for listening to me kind of pontificate on a few things. And we're going to work on some more of the universal laws, and the big portion is going to be this whole idea of the energy of money. Do not go Google that book, damn it. It was like, did you see myself catch myself? Like I wasn't going to say it. Nope. So spoiler alert, you're getting that book.
Which book are we talking about?
Called The Energy of Money.
Oh, okay.
So, okay. With that, everybody have a fabulous day. Thank you for your participation, and I'll see you next Thursday, if not before.
Bye.
Oh, and don't forget to book your April and May private sessions if you haven't already.
Michelle, your calendar is full. Or the,
Okay,
and it's, there's nothing available. But
okay, for this,
Yeah. And that's
Right.
okay. And if that happens, Carrie, feel free to
Yeah.
pop out to my schedule and see if there's something. Either way, we'll get you covered.
for you,
Cool.
Carrie, I just, thank you for letting me know. So
Mm.
we'll just text each other back and forth. It's
sounds
fine.
good. Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Bye,
Cool.
friends.
Awesome.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.